Max Verstappen is about to do something that almost every Formula One driver secretly fears. Not race the Nürburgring. Expose Formula One itself. Because while the entire paddock fights to survive modern Formula One politics, Verstappen just walked away from all of it, to race in the most dangerous endurance event on Earth. A track so brutal that drivers are legally forced to complete special races before they are even allowed to enter. 154 corners. 25 kilometers of chaos. Fog, rain, darkness, traffic everywhere. And Verstappen wanted this more than anything. So badly that Mercedes executives reportedly helped move schedules just to make his debut possible. And now the entire motorsport world is asking the same terrifying question. Why would the best Formula One driver alive risk everything for this race? Because the answer is far bigger than racing. It reveals what Verstappen truly thinks about Formula One in 2026. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Subscribe now, because this story gets even more uncomfortable for Formula One than people realize. For most drivers, the Nürburgring is a nightmare. For Max Verstappen, it looks like freedom. And that difference explains almost everything. Because this is not just another racing event added to his calendar. This is the clearest sign yet that Verstappen is searching for something Formula One no longer gives him. The strange part is how early this story actually began. At first, people inside motorsport treated the Nürburgring rumors like fantasy. Just another paddock conversation that would disappear after a few weeks. But behind the scenes, Verstappen was already pushing hard to make it happen. And according to the source material, the situation became so serious that Mercedes leadership reportedly helped adjust Nürburgring scheduling so Verstappen could complete the mandatory qualification race required to enter the 24 hours event. Think about how absurd that sounds. Mercedes helping a Red Bull driver. Not in Formula One. Outside Formula One. That almost never happens. And yet somehow, everyone involved understood that this project mattered. Because Nürburgring is not just another racetrack. Drivers call it the green hell for a reason. The full circuit stretches over 25 kilometers through forests, blind corners, massive elevation changes, and sections so narrow that mistakes become catastrophic instantly. There are 154 corners. Not 10. Not 20. 154. Imagine trying to memorize every crack, bump, braking point, and danger zone across a road longer than some entire cities. Now imagine doing it at night. At full speed. While rain appears in one section of the circuit and dry conditions remain somewhere else entirely. That is Nürburgring endurance racing. And here is what makes Verstappen's decision feel so shocking to other Formula One drivers. He did not choose the safest possible path. He chose the exact opposite. Because Formula One today is built around precision and control. Everything is engineered to remove unpredictability. The cars are protected by advanced systems. The tracks have huge runoff areas. Teams simulate almost every situation before the race even starts. But Nürburgring does not care about simulations. It punishes hesitation instantly. And Verstappen seems addicted to that challenge. That sounds dramatic, but the evidence is everywhere. Even before the main race weekend, Verstappen already showed terrifying pace during the qualifying events in April. At one stage, he was leading the race. Leading against experienced endurance specialists who have spent years learning the Nordschleife. That should not happen this quickly. Especially not for a Formula One driver balancing an entirely different championship at the same time. But Verstappen adapted faster than almost anyone expected. And this is where the tension inside Formula One quietly started growing. Because drivers noticed something unusual. Verstappen did not look stressed. He looked comfortable. Natural. Almost happier. And that creates a dangerous question for the entire paddock. What if the most complete version of Max Verstappen exists outside Formula One's modern system? Because suddenly, this stops looking like a side project. It starts looking personal. And the deeper you go into this story, the more obvious that becomes. But here is where the story becomes far more controversial. Because Verstappen is not just racing at Nürburgring. He is racing there with a Mercedes. And in Formula One terms, that is almost surreal. The source material confirms that Verstappen is entering the event with his own team, Verstappen Racing, running a Mercedes-AMG GT3 car with Red Bull branding. Just picture that image for a second. The face of Red Bull Racing. The driver Toto Wolff has chased for years. Now driving a Mercedes painted with Red Bull colors through the forests of Germany. That is not normal motorsport politics anymore. That is a message. And Formula One drivers understand messages better than anyone. Because inside the paddock, every decision means something. Every appearance. Every partnership. Every side project. Especially when it involves Max Verstappen. And the more details emerged, the more serious this entire operation started to look. Verstappen did not arrive with amateur teammates or celebrity guests. He surrounded himself with Nürburgring specialists. Danny Juncadella, Jules Gounon, Lucas Auer. Drivers with years of endurance racing experience. Drivers who understand how dangerous the Nordschleife becomes once darkness arrives. That matters because nighttime at Nürburgring changes everything. The source material describes it as the most unpredictable environment in world motorsport. And honestly, that description still feels too soft. Because during the night section, visibility can disappear almost instantly. Fog moves through the forest with no warning. Cars from slower categories suddenly appear ahead. Some sections become nearly impossible to read at high speed. Imagine sprinting through a forest while someone constantly turns the lights on and off around you. That is what drivers face for hours. And Verstappen wanted that challenge voluntarily. Now compare that to modern Formula 1. Bright floodlights, perfectly prepared circuits, predictable conditions, constant radio communication, endless data support. Formula 1 is still incredibly difficult, of course. But Nürburgring endurance racing attacks drivers differently. It attacks concentration, fear, patience, instinct. And maybe that is exactly what Verstappen misses most. Because one line buried deep inside the source material changes the entire interpretation of this story. It mentions Verstappen's growing frustration with Formula 1 regulations during the 2026 era. That sounds minor at first, but it is not. Because frustration changes drivers, especially champions. Sometimes they become more aggressive. Sometimes they lose motivation. And sometimes they start searching for reminders of why they loved racing in the first place. That may be exactly what Nürburgring represents for Verstappen. Not an escape from pressure. An escape from limitation. And here is the part Formula 1 drivers probably find hardest to ignore. He is already good at it. Very good. Verstappen previously won an official Nordschleife race during an earlier GT3 appearance. Then during the recent qualifying races, he immediately showed front-running pace again before damage destroyed the team's result. That is terrifying for the rest of motorsport. Because the scariest version of any champion is the one who rediscovers enjoyment. And right now, Verstappen looks like someone enjoying racing more than ever. Not because the pressure disappeared. Because the danger returned. And this is where the entire story starts pointing toward a much bigger question. What if Verstappen is not simply expanding his career? What if he is quietly preparing for life beyond Formula 1 already? And this is the moment where the entire Formula 1 paddock starts getting nervous. Because if Max Verstappen wins this race, the conversation around him changes forever. Not just as a Formula 1 driver. As a complete racing driver. And there is a massive difference between those two things. Formula 1 has always liked to present itself as the absolute peak of motorsport. The fastest cars. The biggest pressure. The greatest drivers. But Nürburgring creates a completely different kind of test. In Formula 1, drivers usually fight against 19 other cars. At the 24 Hours of Nürburgring, Verstappen will face more than 160 cars from multiple categories at the same time. Some are dramatically slower. Some are unpredictable. Some are driven by amateur racers. Now imagine trying to overtake all of them, in darkness, while preserving tires, fuel, brakes, concentration, and survival for an entire day. It stops feeling like a sprint. It becomes psychological warfare. And this is where things become dangerous for every other Formula 1 driver watching this unfold. Because if Verstappen dominates here too, people will start asking a question motorsport has avoided for years. How many current Formula 1 drivers could actually survive this environment? Not qualify well. Not do a few fast laps. Survive it for 24 hours at elite pace. That question matters because Nürburgring exposes weaknesses brutally. Patience, awareness, adaptability, mental endurance. There is nowhere to hide. One tiny lapse destroys everything. And Verstappen seems uniquely built for chaos. That is what makes this story so uncomfortable. Most drivers spend their entire careers specializing in one discipline. Verstappen suddenly looks capable of mastering all of them. And the source material quietly reinforces that fear. It explains how Verstappen and his team already collected crucial experience during the April qualifying races, learning traffic patterns, track evolution, danger zones, and changing conditions throughout long runs. That is not hobby behavior. That is preparation. Serious preparation. Almost military in its detail. And the scary part is that Verstappen still has relatively limited Nürburgring experience compared to true endurance veterans. Yet he is already competing near the front. Imagine a chess player learning a completely new game, then immediately challenging world champions anyway. That is how abnormal this adaptation looks. But the deeper reason behind all of this may be emotional more than competitive. Because Formula One drivers rarely admit something publicly. Many of them miss the feeling that originally made them fall in love with racing. Over time, Formula One becomes corporate, structured, controlled, every answer filtered, every action analyzed, every mistake amplified worldwide in seconds. But Nürburgring still feels raw, primitive, human. The danger cannot be hidden behind statistics or simulations. Drivers feel it every lap. And for someone like Verstappen, that feeling may be addictive. Especially after years inside the increasingly political world of Formula One. And this creates another fascinating tension inside the paddock. Because some drivers probably admire what Verstappen is doing, while others may secretly fear it. Fear that he is proving something they cannot. Fear that he is exposing limits they never wanted questioned. Because if the dominant Formula One driver can immediately become elite in one of the hardest endurance races on Earth, it forces motorsport fans to rethink everything. Not just about Verstappen. About Formula One itself. And then there is one final detail that changes the emotional weight of this entire story. For the first time in the event's history, Nürburgring weekend tickets completely sold out before the race even began. That has never happened before. Not in more than 5 decades of this race existing. And the reason is obvious. People are not just showing up to watch Verstappen race. They are showing up to witness an experiment. An experiment that could reveal what the best driver in the world truly wants from motorsport now. And the closer this race gets, the more one possibility starts feeling real. What if Nürburgring is not a temporary obsession for Verstappen? What if it is the beginning of a completely different future? And now we arrive at the part almost nobody inside Formula One wants to say out loud. Because the real danger of this Nürburgring project is not that Verstappen could win. It is what happens if he realizes he prefers this world more than Formula One. That sounds impossible at first. Why would a multiple world champion walk away emotionally from the biggest racing series on Earth? But the clues are everywhere. Look at the way Verstappen talks about racing now compared to a few years ago. In Formula One, his interviews often sound calculated, controlled, sometimes exhausted. Especially during conversations about regulations, politics, penalties, or race management. But every time Nürburgring enters the discussion, something changes instantly. The energy returns. The excitement sounds real again. And people inside motorsport notice those details. Because drivers rarely fake passion successfully. Especially someone like Verstappen. And this is where the story becomes bigger than one race weekend. Historically, the greatest drivers eventually search for something beyond championships. Not because they stop caring about winning. Because they stop caring only about winning. There is a difference. Some drivers chase legacy. Others chase danger. Others chase freedom. And Verstappen suddenly looks like someone chasing authenticity. That word matters more than people realize. Because modern Formula One is increasingly shaped around entertainment structure. Sprint weekends. Media obligations. Strict communication rules. Constant public pressure. Everything carefully packaged. But Nürburgring still feels untamed. The race does not care how famous you are. The track does not care how many championships you won. One mistake in traffic at night and everything disappears instantly. That honesty attracts certain drivers powerfully. Especially drivers who grew up loving pure racing more than celebrity. And there is another reason this situation feels so shocking to Formula One drivers. Most champions protect themselves carefully. They avoid unnecessary risk. Especially outside Formula One. Because one injury can destroy an entire season. One accident can change a career permanently. Yet Verstappen voluntarily entered one of the most dangerous endurance events in the world anyway. That decision alone tells you this is emotional for him, not just competitive. Because logic says protecting a Formula One career should come first. Passion says something very different. And Verstappen appears to be listening to passion. But here is the twist that changes everything. This Nürburgring project may actually make him even more dangerous inside Formula One too. Because endurance racing teaches skills modern Formula One rarely develops anymore. Patience in traffic. Managing exhaustion. Reading changing grip conditions instantly. Controlling aggression over extremely long periods. Staying mentally sharp while chaos unfolds around you constantly. Those are survival instincts. And Verstappen is already terrifying when fully focused. Now imagine adding another layer of racing intelligence to that. That possibility alone probably unsettles rival drivers. Because they know confidence changes athletes. And Nürburgring could give Verstappen something Formula One has not given him in a long time. Fresh motivation.